It's becoming a thing because we're realizing the profit margin of all of these corporations, and we're realizing where our dollar is going to be most valuable, which at the end of the day, go figure, is local. So there's people going, hey, how do we either buy these things from local mom and pop run organizations, or how do we make it ourselves?
It is wild. Brandy, God bless you. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great. So this is episode number 2 of the, what were we calling it? The Eagle Chamber Check-In?
I guess. Eagle Chamber Chats. I don't know.
Chamber something.
God
bless
keep it
Here,
down.
cheers to you.
Cheers.
So these beverages are courtesy of Holland's Bites and Brews. So Holland, we talked about this on the last episode. She has this really cool cart that comes to Dry Creek Ranch frequently.
Yeah.
And I ended up talking to her. She's a really interesting lady, and she's like has a deep love for making beverages, which I can appreciate because I do enjoy good coffee.
Yeah.
What is this? You were telling me she like makes her own lavender syrup.
I'm so excited. Okay, so I'm going to reference because she sent me exactly where. So she gets, or her lavender syrup is local lavender from Blue Sky Farms. So Blue Sky Farms has, I believe, this whole flower picking, and she pulls the lavender and does her own syrups out of them.
Oh my God, I just took a sip.
Okay, hold on, I'm excited. Ready?
That is baller. So when I was living in California, I know.
Oh no.
Right. It's
Oh
really
no, I'm going to have to be like, may I buy your syrups?
Yeah. And she's a mobile lady, so it's not like she has a storefront I can go to every day and get this.
Well, but here's the thing. Like, I'll post it and I'll make sure I tag you in it. And she has her schedule up every week.
Perfect.
And
So
where,
we can,
you can chase her every day.
Oh, my God.
That's going to be driving into, the deep Treasure Valley.
I am. So when I trained jiu-jitsu, and I got injured, I think 10 years ago. And it was a really bad knee injury to the point where normally when I pop my knee, it's 4 to 6 weeks. I do a few hundred body weight squats a day and ice the hell out of it. And it's within a month, I'm kind of back training. Well, this knee injury was really bad. And I was like, well, shoot. And I had a friend who rode up. We lived at the base of Mount Diablo. And she would ride up all the time. Because when you're an SAT tutor and you work in the evening, the only people that are around when you're off work are middle-aged people who have no jobs. So she was like, you should come cycling on Mount Diablo. And she lived around the corner. I was like, okay, whatever. Sure. I'll go cycling. So I start cycling on Mount Diablo. I totally fall in love with it. It's hot as hell. It's very few people are there on a weekday. You go on a weekend, it's all over. You get the most commanding view of the Bay Area. And to some degree, you kind of fall back in love with the idea of California because it is beautiful. You get to the top of the mountain and you just look out and you're like, God, this is unreal. And you realize so much of the Bay Area is unpopulated. So much of the Bay Area is actually these rolling green hills and just gorgeousness and open space. But on the way up, there were always wild lavender and rosemary plants that I would smell. And it on a hot, dry summer day, I'm
with a little breeze,
with a little updraft, and there's a vulture that kind of appears off the right side because it's carrying the updraft going up the mountain. So I'd be hauling up this mountain and then there's this vulture or bird just soaring
hoping
right next
you
to you.
just crash and burn.
I mean, I'm hoping that's not what he was thinking, but yeah, it was a very beautiful moment where it's kind of this is why California became so popular. It's a train wreck now because, by the way, all these people ended up getting hurt or getting killed on Mount Diablo because then you'd have tourists that would come.
Hence the vulture.
Yeah, right. It was a train wreck. Yeah. Anyway, so Mount Diablo, here's to you.
Yeah. Well, I think it's neat that you can reminisce and remember those certain details but it's home. And when you have coffee like this and it has that lavender and you have this memory, it just solidifies that love of that item. So the smell of lavender reminds you of home. And I feel when you have a drink that brings that all full circle, you're just I want this all the time.
Can I ask you something personal?
Yes.
You moved here, but how long ago? It's it doesn't matter, but you moved here. Okay.
6 years, officially May will be.
MTU Studios is the proud producer for the Ada County Sheriff Podcast, the Idaho Wildlife Federation Podcast, the State Representative Ted Hill Podcast, the Idaho State PTA Podcast, and many more. If you or your organization is thinking about starting a podcast, MTU Studios would love to help. Just check out mtustudios.com. I find that there are 2 ways that people deal with moving here and deal with the loss of the world that they had. And the two ways really are to be upset about that what you moved away from is not what you had grown up with. It's not what you had come to love. It was none of those things. Or they can view it as a sad thing, but they also just surround themselves with piles of gratitude for having the experience that they had. Like, which is it for you?
I think you know which it is. And I feel like if you were to guess, what would you guess?
Well, I would say gratitude, but like, I don't assume that always. I mean, like, was it always gratitude? Or was like the first 6 months like, son of a bitch?
Well, it's kind of a bit of both. So I moved here and my husband didn't come for the first 8 months. So I was here with my 2-year-old little boy pretty much by ourselves. He would come and visit every few weeks because he was still working. He was still finishing up projects out there. So for me, there was a really hard transition. But seeing the mountains every day, driving my son to preschool, I'm like, I get to live here. I get to see this mountainscape. I get to see snow on the mountains. I get to be here. And there was like an overwhelming amount of gratitude. And then for us, when we picked Idaho, because we got the opportunity to pick being here. I may not be a native, which one of my kids is, but I may not be a native, but I got to pick this place. Right. And I'm going to love it and appreciate it and preserve it for what it is because I get the opportunity to be here. And we just fell in love with the Treasure Valley. It reminded us of home.
Right.
So it reminded us of the childhood we had. And I mean, I'm not going to lie, I didn't get to play out on the streets because I lived off of like a main street and a highway where my husband got a different view. He got to ride his bikes to his friend's house and all those things. But I could never in California let my kids ride their bikes to their friend's house. That like not even an option. You don't step foot in the backyard without me in the backyard. Now, living in such a different culture, there is nothing but appreciation and gratitude. Yeah. I don't ever look back and go, oh, I wish I could still be there. Oh, I wish. Yes, we miss our friends. We miss our family members that are still there. We wish we see them more, but I get to live here. Like, this is the coolest place, in my opinion, on the planet to be, just because you have everything that California offered except for a beach.
Except good Chinese food.
Okay, that's another conversation.
Don't respond to that.
I feel like that's a whole nother, like.
I think I was always excited about moving here.
Okay.
The only time that I think I got really frustrated was I was clearing out my classroom because I was in teaching, and I had essentially sold my SAT practice to this other company, and I was clearing out my personal effects and getting all the stuff. And I got really like mad at that time. And it was something like a week before we were moving. And I was not mad that I was moving to Idaho. I was mad that California had become something that it shouldn't have, that the world changed. And I was always worried about never making a mistake myself, right? Like for instance, I was dealing with teenagers, right? Like I wouldn't even high five them. I'd like fist bump. I didn't want any, like, I was dance a very
I
was very cognizant of like, hey, these are really simple things you can do to make sure there's not even a question, right? Like when I would have a class and I would find out that only one person was showing up to the class. Like I could go to somebody's house and meet one-on-one, but I'm in their house, right? And their parents have the option to be there, not be there, whatever. But if somebody was coming to my classroom and I found out there was only gonna be one person, I would actually call a different student and be like, hey, can you come and just study in my classroom? Like you don't even have to study for the SAT. Can you just come and be here? So I was really aware of look, the only thing that's going to stop this is if you make some ridiculous mistake, or if you don't make a mistake, but you don't have the right protocol in place and somebody like accuses you of saying something wrong, which is like, it never happened because I never allowed those things to happen.
Well, you had a buffer in place. You had a system.
I had a system in place because, I mean, the world is filled with examples of teachers being inappropriate. I'm like, I'm not going to be a statistic here, right? So it was one of those shocks where it's like, this isn't right. Like I didn't make a mistake. I shouldn't be getting kicked out of this. But what it was first off COVID, and then this huge sentiment that anything that outlined racial disparities in academics was wrong, like the SAT, and they essentially shut down the SAT for a lot of schools. That was the only time where I'm like, what has happened? Like I'm Mexican. My grandfather came here like right around World War II because he signed up for the army and then went to a roller rink and was hanging out for real. This is like 1940. I don't know when was Pearl Harbor bombed. Do you know? It was like 41, 42.
42?
Okay, great. Not great, but okay. So my grandfather's at this roller rink. Like the day he signs up for the Army, they give him like lunch and $5, and he goes to this roller rink because he's like 18, and like that's what you did when you were 18 in the 40s.
That's not what you do at 33 on a Wednesday?
Not so much. Maybe. Depends if you go with your kids. But the point is, he goes and everybody's watching TV. He's like, what are you guys watching? And he's like broken English, I'm sure, because he was from Mexico.
Right.
And they're like, well, Pearl Harbor just got bombed. And he just signed up for the Army that day. So he got pulled in.
Oh, wow.
And then he had my dad. My dad was fourth of 6 kids, broke Hispanic people growing up in Arizona. And then when my dad was really young, they moved to Costa Mesa. Back when Costa Mesa was like dirt roads and
yeah,
stuff.
totally.
It was like nothing. And they could afford a house. My grandfather went to school at night and got his aeronautical engineering degree after like 8 years of slugging through while he's trying to raise all these kids. My dad grows up. His parents implode. It was just too much stress, I think, for a mere mortal. His family implodes, so he has to go to Vietnam, flies helicopters in Vietnam at like 18, comes back, uses the GI Bill. Long story short, he becomes a doctor. I'm born when he's in med school. Like all of these things that come from hardworking, self-determined individuals. And he went to a UC school. I went to a UC school. Like I grew up going to public schools there. It's like we should be heralded as the great success stories of California's system, but instead 100% vilified because of our success. If I had been broke and Hispanic and like railing against the man, people would be like, yeah, you're right. You should get mad at these. But because I was successful in self-employed, my wife and I killed ourselves working 7 days a week all through our 20s. We never did anything. That was the only time when I looked at California, I was like, dude, this is so wrong. And it was just, a multitude of other things, but that was the only time when I thought, aside from being happy that I was moving here, because this place is so much better, it did make me think like, what has California lost? Like, how have they come to this point? This isn't, shouldn't be
because
this
it
way.
becomes like multi-generational leaving. My grandparents moved when I was 12. They moved back to New Mexico, which is where my grandmother's from originally. And then my husband and I were getting engaged, and I was like, I don't really want to live in California.
Dude, by the way, this drink is amazing.
I know. I keep like savoring it. I'm like, oh, I can like airs.
Well, it's your turn to talk, so I get to drink. So
yes.
Keep talking.
So to see that not only had my grandmother left, I left, my parents left, my husband's like we have 3 full generations that moved themselves out of California for just the fact that it was turning into something that it never was. It was a beautiful home. We grew up so much similar to the Treasure Valley. Right. That's why we fell in love with Equal. We fell in love with Bodacious Pig, which, by the way, side note, I did a survey on the Eagle Chamber social media about the burgers, right? About where the best burger is. I feel vilified because we have another person respond that was like, oh, the Bodacious Pig has the best burger.
You don't feel vilified. You feel vindicated.
Vindicated, yeah. Vindicated is probably the better word. I've not had enough coffee to make my brain work properly this morning, so sorry in advance.
I didn't get the name of this. This is like
it's a lavender oat milk latte.
God bless it, man.
Okay. Now you need to try your roost balls. Okay. So
hang on. I'm gonna take a picture.
Oh yeah, take a picture of your roost balls. I'm gonna try my potato soup that she. Oh my gosh, dude.
Oh my gosh, look at this. Oh. What are these?
Okay, so I'm gonna tell you exactly what's in them. They are gluten-free. Her rooster balls have local Idaho honey from Whistle Farms, gluten-free Bob Mills oats.
Everybody say hi.
Mini chocolate chips, vanilla extract, and fresh ground peanut butter.
God bless America. I'm going for it.
Yep. Okay. I'm going to try my potato soup over here. Let's see.
Hell yeah. Oh, that chocolate chip hits hard.
Oh, no. This is so good. This isn't gluten-free. Otherwise, I would offer.
No,
it is potato soup, and there's like chunks of chives. You can taste the garlic. It is so well seasoned. Okay, so I didn't even know that Holland Bites and Brews did food. And I should have known because it's called Bites and Brews. So, like, who's the asshole? This guy. But these are super tasty. They also have a fire chai. I think I told you that last time. That's what I got. You taught me what chai was. Oh, yeah, chai tea. Yeah, it's you chai can't say chai tea. Yeah, because chai just means tea. Well, and I love it. So she posted up today in Meridian, and it was like 5 minutes from my house. But she picks a different spot, so that way she can serve all of the different communities within the Treasure Valley. She runs everything. I mean, like, everything is homemade, handmade. She uses Gaston for pastries because she sources everything locally. She's so thoughtful in the way she goes about her menu and the way she makes her products. That
is Gaston a local bakery?
Yeah.
Oh, gotta
you're
get some.
gluten free, right?
I can smell it.
You're like, I can sniff them.
Dude, give me a croissant and just let me break it apart to smell it. Like, it's as close as I'm going to get to taking a bite.
Okay,
Maybe I can do that like wine tasting style where I like chew it and then have like a spittoon thing and I just spit it out.
I think the visual of that alone was entertaining enough for me to want to buy like an old-fashioned spittoon.
Hit us up.
Okay. All right. So I think what I love about her specifically is her want to bring local, like in front of the general public, which the fact that she uses Idaho honey, she's using things from local farms, she's sourcing things and making sure that she's making that effort just sets her apart entirely. So I appreciate her.
Are you familiar with the concept of hyper local honey?
No.
Yeah, so I found this out because we have a CSA in Dry Creek Ranch, and Farmer Dan, who's awesome.
Yeah.
He was like, okay, well,
his veggies are bomb.
Yeah, he's the best.
Yeah.
Like, he's absolutely the best. But he has a Saturday market, which is open to the public, which is awesome too. And they have fantastic proteins and all kinds of other things. But he was like, this honey's hyper local. Like, okay, Dan, I'm hyper local too. Like, I don't know. Is this like, what is this? And he's like, no. That means that it's literally sourced from places around here. So if you have allergies, he's like, look at where you are.
Yeah.
If you have allergies, some people very much believe that you will be helped because it's pollen. You're ingesting pollen that will like desensitize your histemic response.
So we do that at home. I didn't realize that that's what it was
called. That's
what
it's called,
though.
Like hyper local.
Yeah. So raw honey from your local area. And all you have to do is eat like a tablespoon a day.
Does it have to be raw? Is that what does the
pasteurization doesn't help. If you want to help your allergies, you're going to want to make sure it's raw honey.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because pasteurization kills off bacteria, but it also kills off good bacteria.
Yeah.
So you got to figure the way that honey is digested, it's antimicrobial, antibacterial. It's wonderful for your immune system, but you want to eat it in its rawest form possible to get the best benefit out of it.
Yeah. Are you noticing or enjoying the wave of, I feel like from the 50s on, we kind of got taken by the miracle of science, right? So from the 50s on, it became like, hey, we're pumping preservatives into food and like, isn't this a miracle? It will last forever. Or like we get the partially hydrogenated oils.
Oh, don't even get me started
so
on
like
those.
We get margarine. Like my stepmom is from Montana, and we went and spent some time there in the summer, which was awesome. I really enjoyed it as a kid. We got to go horseback riding and stuff like that. It was crazy. I grew up in like a concrete jungle. So like the fact that I got on a horse, I was like, this is wild. And it was funny because I tried to, I was like 11 or something. And I remember they were like, okay, we're going to go up to this. We're going to ride. It's going to take like an hour or two, but we're going to go to this place called the fireplace. Okay. There had been a cabin that had burned down, but the stone fireplace was still standing, right? So people would go and then they'd start a fire in the fireplace, hang out, kumbaya, whatever, and then come home. Right. And I remember going there on the horse and trying to get the horse to go one way or another. And the horse, if it could have talked, it would have been like, you don't fucking know what you're doing. Like, I'm going to just go where we should be going. And I'm like, no, horsey, like, go this way.
At 11, you're like, yeah.
Shut the fuck, like, no. And the horse, because the horse knew to follow the other horses, and he knew, like, who the lead horse was. So, like, there's dumb Matt. Like, oh, we should. He was like, I'm not going to listen to you, Sparky. Anyway, but where was I? Oh, anyway, so they enjoyed margarine. I had never seen margarine. And I feel like there was this wave of scientific creations that kind of took over the world from like 1950 until around the like 2005, where people really started saying, you know what, man, I don't want all that shit. Like, I really want like more base. Do you remember the wave of when organic and natural were trying to brand themselves differently? Yeah. Where that like people were using organic and natural interchangeably because there was this wave of, hey, look, I don't know what you fucking put in this stuff. Like, can we just bring this down to like basic cow or like basic chicken? Like, don't raise it in a manner that doesn't necessitate pumping it full of all these antibiotics and stuff. Like, is that possible? Can we just, and I don't know. I've been enjoying that. And I think raw milk is one of those things. You're like the 10th person who's mentioned raw milk in the last month, and people are Like, how many people do you know or that you've heard of that have been hurt by raw milk? Like, I've never met a single one. And it was sold to us as you have to do this to be okay. It's
Exactly.
like, what do you mean to be like? How do you mean?
It's kind of neat though. So there's so much that surrounds this conversation. So one of the things that I think is very intriguing
I'm sorry, everybody. I'm having another one of these fights.
the rooster balls.
Yeah, they're super good.
So in 2005, you got to figure, where's the internet at that point in time? It's starting to boom. We're starting to realize it's a source for information. Whereas if you were trying to look up what ingredients were, you had to go to the library, you had to sit there, you had to research, you had to do all of this deep diving. Whereas we have it in front of our fingertips. Right. So knowledge being power that it is, we started, I think, uncovering all of these things that the food industry was saying are appropriate to eat. And then we're realizing, oh no, that wasn't as appropriate. Right. Oh, you mean food dye is going to cause my brain to go crazy?
Right, like
you mean
Red
like
40?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I have a friend who would violently attack his younger brother whenever he had a red vine. And it was a joke in the family. It's like, keep the Red 40 away from Brad. Yeah. And I laughed about it. They're like, no, for real. Like, he'll attack Jordan. He can't help himself.
We don't allow it in our house. Like, it is a banned item. If it's BHA, BHT, TBHQ, like all of these crazy ingredients are actually, oh my gosh, they are a derivative of, my brain just wants to buffer today.
I don't know,
basically, it's a petroleum byproduct. I was
just going to say.
It's a petroleum byproduct. So the way your body absorbs and the way your brain takes in that molecule, it's almost identical to that of food dye. So your brain, when it goes crazy with red food dye, or it makes you really sad with yellow food dye, that TBHQ, BHA, BHT that are in things like pepperonis and fruit snacks and all these crazy other little snacks on the shelves do the same identical thing. So it's really intriguing to me to see this uprising and this shift and change in our generation of, wait a second, we want to get back to where we were at. And even like I've talked to doctors and they're going, yeah, if it has more than 5 ingredients, don't bother eating it.
Right. So Michael Pollan actually had one of those. Michael Pollan's a food and agricultural author, journalist, and a client of mine, actually. I worked with his son.
Oh, cool.
Which was awesome. Like, he's a really cool guy. And he wrote Omnivore's Dilemma. He wrote a bunch of different food books, but one of his, I think he wrote Eat Food. He came up with the idea, or at least popularized the sentiment, that what we consume isn't de facto food, right? He's like, when you eat something that has 27 different ingredients, it may have been food at one point, but it is no longer food, right? And his whole point was eat food, mostly plants, not too much, right? And that was his big piece. Now, people disagree on how much you should eat plants, how much you should eat, meat, proteins, but no one disagrees with the eat food. No. Like, everybody's attempting, every popular or sustaining diet that I've heard of, or health-oriented diet, which is like, you have people that are genuinely sick. Like, let's help get them back into reality. Not even from like, just lose 10 pounds and then you're off the diet. It's just like this, you need to change your life in this way.
It's a lifestyle shift, not a diet.
Right.
Yeah.
Even if you want to have different percentages of your calories consumed coming from protein versus plants, everybody is agreeing, go to the base whole ingredient. Foods. Right. Right. The whole foods diet, right? The strategy.
Well, I think that kind of like boils down to that milk piece. I mean, they took milk and basically said, oh, you're going to die if you drink this raw milk, because they had a handful of cases. And, there's a whole nother story that we can get down. I'll have to send you a link and then we'll discuss it on next week's episode. But it's very intriguing, the process, when you see how milk is actually processed and when you go through the pasteurization process of it versus raw milk. Like, I have my own raw milk dairy that I go to specifically. Wow. Oh my gosh, I love her. The first day I went to buy their milk, she walked me through the area. She showed me everything, the entire process. So as a consumer, I felt comfortable purchasing because I knew the mentality and the thought process and the checks and balances that were in place. Like, I have no qualms buying from them, because I know for a fact I'm not going to get sick. They go through rigorous testing. They're licensed. By the way, if you buy raw dairy that does not have a license permit number on the bottle, you're buying illegal raw dairy.
Oh my God. God, you're bootlegging.
There's a bootlegged raw dairy industry here. I didn't know it was like a thing. I'm baffled. I feel like there needs to be like a mafioso in charge of all of that, though.
I'm sure there's a raw milk mafia somewhere where like people are controlling the market. like, I don't know if they're Italian, but like there's definitely,
I know part of me's like,
there's definitely a raw
do they know
milk.
some people who know
There's
some
a
people?
raw milk boss somewhere who's like, it was good milk. Like, I
feel like it's Garfield though. At that point, I just feel like it's Garfield in a suit with some lasagna and a glass of raw milk in front of him.
Dude, my son actually, it's funny you say that, 2 weeks ago got into Garfield comics, and now every night at dinner he's like, oh my gosh, there's this one comic with Garfield saying, like, at this restaurant, and he was like, this chicken is bad, and like the guy picks up the chicken and whacks the chicken, and it's bad chicken. It's like he's telling me all these ridiculous Garfield comics. It's like, wow, man, that stuff, like, it's got staying power. Like,
well, it does. It crosses that generational barrier.
Yeah, and like every 12-year-old is going to think that's ridiculous, or a certain portion of every
Calvin
generation.
And Hobbes? Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah, they read Calvin and Hobbes too.
Okay, we literally found a Calvin and Hobbes book, and my son was like, "Oh, what's that?" And I went, "You're gonna love it. It's hysterical, and it's just a book of all the Calvin and Hobbes comics."
They did a great job of that.
And so he's in the car and he's looking at it, and he's like, "Oh, this is funny, Mom. He's doing this and he's doing," and I'm going, I told you I'm not as crazy as you thought I was. But it's interesting to see, like, because we also pull back from technology. I know we talked about this last time, which I hope that's going really well.
Small side note. So I think we just crossed our 5th weekend of no tech. And to be clear, we still do own TVs, but we hide the remotes. So kids don't have access to the remotes. And like, I have a little first grader, right? And he burns really hot. So sometimes it's like, okay, look, just watch, Peg Plus Cap. Like, here, just hang out for a little bit. Dinner's almost ready. No big deal. So he'll get like 20 minutes or something. But besides that, they don't have, like, when they wake up at like 6 or something, they don't have access to the TV. So they, out of nowhere, it was like a week ago, they found cards, like playing cards, not a specific deck of Old Maid, but like
bicycle cards.
Yeah, bicycle cards. And my oldest son found a set of bicycle cards that were actually Star Wars cards. And so they have the different Star Wars characters on them, the whole thing. They have lost their mind with card games. They are playing solitaire. They're playing speed. They're playing war.
Slapjack?
Oh, yeah. Oh, hell yeah. Love Slapjack. But my son is now taking them to middle school to like play cards with his friends. So not only, one of the problems we had with tech initially is that a lot of the kids just jump on their laptops at lunch and it breaks. And my son, which was really upsetting, he's like hanging out in the library reading a lot. He's very, very social. I mean, he's like me, but like 12. And I'm like, look, what's going on, man? Like, what's the deal? And he was like, I don't know. Like, people are just kind of on their laptops. Yeah. Bottom line is, he took his deck of cards to school to show people and then ended up playing cards all through lunch break. And I was like, God bless it.
It's a domino effect.
Maybe there are other kids that don't want to be on their tech, but they are otherwise lacking the opportunities or options to engage in just like normal play. Yeah. Right. But he's like, here, play speed with me. Like, here, play Slapjack. Like, and check it out. These are Star Wars cards. Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, it's going very well. Thanks for asking.
Okay. So teach him Kings in the Corner.
I don't know what that is, but I'll look.
I was so mad. So we are a game family. Like, we love a good game night.
Love games.
Okay. So we sit there, make dinner, sit down and have game night.
Whole thing.
My son's like, yeah, let's do Slapjack. We'll do like, there's like a Harry Potter Clue game that he loves to play.
Oh, we have Harry Potter Clue. Yeah.
But it's not called Clue. It's like Harry Potter.
Like, and it's the first Battle for Hogwarts or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Is it the one with the spinny things on the corners?
No.
Okay, well then I got another game for you. It's
so
very cool. Anyway, keep going.
Yes. So it's so easy. We actually learned it when my father-in-law had emergency open heart surgery. They gave him this deck of cards and they had big print and they taught him this easy game to get his brain going after surgery. It is so easy, so fun, so fast. You can play it in 5 minutes. Sometimes it takes 10, but sometimes it's over in one hand. My husband literally, so you have kings that you have to get in the 4 corners.
Okay.
But you have 4 cards, and then you play as many of your hand as you can, and you're trying to get every other color. So red, black, and you're like, say there's a 7, you got to get a 6, and then a 5, and then a 4. And then once you can, you stack those on top of those kings, and once your hand is gone, you're done. My husband swept in one hand. I'm not joking. He put down 7 cards in one. He's like, game over. And I was like, son of a bitch. I can't even play around with you. And then my son did it the next round, and then I quit. Because I was like, I can't play with either one of you. You guys are no fun.
You know what's an interesting game is War. Like,
Yes.
War, the card game, is so curious to me because the winner is determined as you pass the cards out. there's no strategy involved. You're just playing out this pattern. As long as nobody cheats, you're just playing out the pattern to find out who wins. The entire game is about anticipation. The game has nothing to do with skill. Like you just flip the cards and you do whatever the cards say. So it's predetermined once you're like, boom, 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 okay, go. Like there's already a winner no matter what you do. And it's like golf, gambling, and war are all about anticipation.
Yes.
Like,
oh,
there's
like, are you a golfer?
No, but like, I don't know anybody who's ever come back from the golf course who was like, what a great round. The happiest moment someone has is right before they tee off. And everything after that is a train wreck, right? Same thing with gambling. Like people, the joy of gambling is not knowing if you're going to win or not. It's the anticipation of finding out the future. There's no strategy like if it's a slot machine, right? It's all about, it's like, well,
unless you're statistics based. If you are like a stat loving person, I feel like it could be a very fun game for you.
Counting cards. I'm not doing it. But like if you're doing the old people doing slot machines with like the cigarettes.
Did you see the lady in the little, she was like in an electrical vehicle. She's in the ECVs and she's going around and she has to be in like Jackpot or Vegas or somewhere like.
Oh, she was going around an island.
And she's just going each one. And just as she's riding around and just spinning. And I was like, to be a fly on the wall, like I would love to just watch her for like an ever-loving amount of hours to see what the probability of her actually winning is and to see where that whole situation went. I was like, I want to adopt her.
Okay. I don't believe that you can win in gambling because it's called gambling.
For a reason. But you're playing.
There's a strategy.
You're playing 3 or 4 slot machines.
Okay.
You're bound to hit a jackpot at some point.
Listen to this. So I have a brother-in-law and his mom was like, I got a strategy to win. I was like, oh, okay, let's hear your strategy. And she's like, all right, so look, if you play a slot machine, you know there's a certain amount of time until the slot machine hits again. It could be 1 pull, it could be 100 pulls.
Yeah.
But the farther you go away, the more money you have lost, right? Because you're inserting money. But the higher the probability the next pull is going to be a winner. I'm like, okay, sure, that makes perfect sense. She's like, yeah. So what I do is I actually put the lowest bid in for the first 10 turns after it hits. And then I put like the second lowest bid in. And then I put the third lowest, the ante, just increases until she's putting in like $1 every single pull. And then when it hits proportionate to the amount of money that you had bet. Were you at the nickel bet or were you at the dollar level bet? And so then when it actually hits, it hits disproportionate with the amount of money that you put in. Right? Because
my brain is like exploding.
I was like, this is not real. But I couldn't actually I'm like, okay, I see where she's coming from.
You can't
right?
discredit it.
Because like if you know the slot machine's going to hit on number 100, you're going to put in the lowest possible bid for 99% of the pulls.
Totally.
And then the last one, you'll be like $100. Pull it, it'll hit. You'll make proportionate to the $100. Right? So we go to Reno. This is before I even had kids. My wife and I and my brother-in-law go up to Reno for like one night. So we got like do you remember Groupon?
Oh, I
Back when
loved
Groupon was a thing. So we had a Groupon. It was like $100 for one hotel room in Reno. And it was like 2000. It had to be like 2010 because everyone was broke. And that's why they were like trying to get anybody into the casinos. So we go up to this like trash casino in Reno and we're like, let's give this a shot. He won $800. Right. And we were like looking like that's not going to work. And he finally hit it. He kept increasing every like 5 or 10 increments, the bet. We're like, Randy, you're just going to run out of money. Finally, kaboom. And we were like hysterical. And we had rum and cokes in us.
Of course.
But it was like all of this money's dumping out. We're like, son of a bitch, it worked.
Okay. So how much money did he spend though to get to that point?
I think he only spent like $40 to get to the 800 because it was a nickel slot machine. So he kept working up from like
which
a nickel
makes sense.
to a dime to 25 to $1. And then by the time he hit like $1 or something, he hit it and it dumped out, 800 times what he had bet.
Holy guacamole.
Yeah. Now, mind you, if it had dumped out 800 times what he bet at 5 cents, he would have got like, I don't know, 10. I can't do the math right now. But the point is, it's not that much. It's like $40 or something.
Absolutely.
But instead, he won 800.
That is bananas.
I know. It's kind of funny,
I'm not a gambler.
Huh?
Like,
no.
I've been to Vegas probably twice.
I'm not like
3 times ever. And it was like, we went to go see Jersey Boys because I love musicals and things. And like, if you've never seen Jersey Boys on stage, you are missing out.
I'm not a Jersey Boys kind of guy. That's just not my jam.
You don't like Frankie Valli?
I don't even know who you're talking about. But what I can tell you is what about me says I would like musicals? 0. Unless it's Moana. and then I like Moana.
I just think at that point you like Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
I do love Dwayne The Rock Johnson. I do. You're 100% right. Like, that guy's great. You know what I love about him? He's like Mike Myers in my mind. Two completely unrelated people, but Mike Myers, out of nowhere, made Wayne's World and then Austin Powers. It's like, how did you think of those characters? Like, what happened?
Okay, but here's the difference. Mike Myers plays like these radically different characters. Dwayne The Rock Johnson is always Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
I know.
If you close your eyes in Moana, you don't picture Maui. You picture Dwayne The Rock Johnson on the screen.
Listen, I don't disagree with you. But here's the thing. The Rock, everyone knew what The Rock was doing, but he did it anyway.
Right.
Right? Like, think of all of the people that are big, muscly guys.
He was good in Jumanji, though.
He was great in Jumanji. Do you remember, what was that movie? The Rundown. It doesn't matter. I was in college, I think, when it came out. So it was a while ago. But the point is, The Rundown is all about, like, he's an enforcer for this mob guy.
Okay, I'm already in.
And the movie starts with him, like, writing down, listening to, like, a chef show on the radio and, like, writing down, like, mushrooms and some.
Okay.
So he's, like, taking notes on a recipe. You're like, what is he doing? And then he goes into this club. He either has to get this guy's, like, Super Bowl ring or get him to pay this gambling debt. He of course, like, wipes the mat with everyone because the guy's not going to do it. And in fact, when he's on the phone, he was a football player. And when he was on the phone with the boss, he's like, listen, man, I don't want to do this right now because, like, the entire starting line's here and they got a really good chance of repeating. And he's like, get the fucking money. So he hangs up and he goes over and, like, beats the shit out of all the football players. Right. So it's like, when he's walking into the club, Arnold Schwarzenegger is walking out and he looks at him and says, I think he says, have fun. Right. Passing the torch to Dwayne as the next Hollywood muscle guy. And then you see these characters come out where he very much mirrors this, not vigilante, but hesitant. This is how he's opposite the Schwarzenegger. Schwarzenegger was all about, like, Conan, violence, the whole thing. Okay. Dwayne The Rock Johnson is always this powerful, hesitant character. So you had The Rundown where, like, he didn't want to use guns. And then you had Standing Tall where he was a sheriff. You know, like, you have all of these things where he's this big, giant, brawny guy, but also portrayed as a clever, intelligent, thoughtful person, which I appreciate in Moana as well. Yeah. He's only called to utilize his full capacity in the salvation of someone else. Right. He's not doing it for himself, right? That was kind of the moral of the story.
Well, but that's also why initially he removed himself. Because he realized he didn't get to do it for a selfish nature.
And he didn't want to risk it. But anyway, so the point is
everybody... for the biscuit.
My God. So the point is everyone knew he was going to be that guy, and he actually did do it. And think about how many big, muscly guys that we've seen that is like, I'm not interested in watching him at all. Like, what about
Vin Diesel?
Yeah, I was going to say Vin Diesel, he has one movie, and that's it.
No,
like,
I think of Vin Diesel as the pacifier. He was the babysitter, the nanny that the mom had to hire, and he was this big dude, and he had the baby and the carrier on the front. Whatever. That is the only thing I can remember him from outside of the Cars movies.
Right, Fast and Furious.
Yes.
Like, that's it. He had one movie, right? He was also in a ridiculous movie with aliens where he was escaping a prisoner colony on a different planet. And to keep them there, what they did is they screwed up their eyes so they could see at night, but they couldn't stand the sun. And they were on this, like, Mercury-style planet. So it was either all full sunlight or all nighttime for, like, days, and it torched. And so they're like, well, they'll never be able to escape because they can't be outside in the sun or something, right? It was a ridiculous movie.
I have never heard of this movie,
listen,
and I'm overly...
Don't worry about it.
No, I'm enthralled.
It's not great. Anyway, so Vin Diesel's a perfect example.
Yeah.
He never is like failure to launch. And, like, look, Vin Diesel's rich and he's a famous guy, but, like, he's no Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
No. They have the same realm, but they can't compete. Yeah. There's no way.
You were saying something that I interrupted you from.
No.
Like an hour ago.
No, it was Risk It for the Biscuit. Actually tied it back.
No, before I got into the movie, before we were talking about The Rock.
Oh, I was just going to ask if your gluten-free thing was a celiac thing or if that's a personal choice because you like how you feel better without gluten.
I don't know. Okay. What I do know is if you gave me a beer right now, my ears and nose would be stuffed up in like 10 seconds. And then tomorrow morning, all of my joints would crack. They would crack like I was 90 years old.
So you'd have inflammation.
I'd have horrendous inflammation. And like if I actually have flour, like if I have a bite of bread, this woman brought by, very kind woman. She lives around the corner and she wanted to interview me for something. She brought by this incredible loaf of French bread. She literally cut a heart into it before she baked it. So there was this heart on this like long fermented sourdough. And I was like, oh my God. And I had a little bite. I'm like, this is the best bread ever. But instantaneously, my stomach was like, go fuck yourself.
Oh,
You're not eating this. Yeah.
Oh, that just ruined everything I have planned. Oh, no. Okay. So
I'll still take the bites. I'm going to get a spittoon.
We're going to buy you a spittoon. We're going to logo it. Like, it'll be great. It'll just be
It'll be great. It'll be great.
It'll be our third member of the cast.
Okay. Why don't we what are the other businesses we need to talk about?
So I need to shout out because I feel very glamorous today. And that is strictly because of Carrie at First Miracle. Okay. Remember we talked about last episode, we were talking about like all these individual places and we talked about so much of like, who do you not know is here in Eagle because we're so big. Well, a couple of the people, one was Dorothy, like shout out Dorothy for this amazing bouquet.
Epic.
Because okay, I don't know if...
Where are you? Are you trying everything you can to get away from the microphone? You're like,
I'm going to... Circles.
Yeah.
No, she like put together this amazing bouquet, which by the way, we need to get pictures of and post.
Look at this beast. Look at this beast.
It is insanely gorgeous. If you guys haven't checked out Hope Blooms, they are a family-run florist shop. They are amazing. Her daughter's in on it. The girls, her daughter's daughters come in and to the shop. So it's multi-generational.
Right.
They are giving. They care about their community. They're so invested. And there's Mother's Day coming up and prom and all of these amazing things.
They're great. Like I am not like, oh, let me stop and smell the roses kind of guy. But I went in there. She very thoughtfully made a comment on one of my first podcasts. Like it was a very thoughtful comment.
Okay.
In fact, she sent me a direct message. Some people had criticized one of my shows and I, of course, was like, hey, look, I appreciate your perspective. Like there's no reason to fight about this. Like if you like it, you don't like, that's totally fine. And she sent me a message saying like, I really appreciate that you didn't fight with people, that you were really nice to them, even though they had strong opinions about what you were doing. So I go in the next day just to say thanks. Cause she was like, oh, I'm, hopefully I'd never been, we had just moved here, or it was like 6 months. And I was like, I'll get my wife some flowers. I'm not a big flower guy. I was blown away by their shop. Like, I don't know how they pack that much stuff in, how it looks so cool, but like I wanted to buy everything. I'm used to floral shops at like Albertsons that are these like neutered, goofy, whatever. Or like you walk by the thing at Costco, it's like, oh, there's some flowers, fine. Her place made me like flowers.
It is an experience.
Yeah. That's a great way of putting it.
You walk in and I mean, you're overstimulated because there's so many things to look at. Like they have an entire section to the left when you walk in of just gifts and things that you can purchase to put with your flowers, whether it be chocolates or locally sourced items. And I mean, and then you see their staff. Their staff is happy and excited to be there. And they're putting together the orders for that day. And it's just like, they love what they do, and it pours in. Oh my gosh. I'm everywhere today.
Listen.
It pours
I'm gonna get some kind of different boom arm for you because you are like hitting that. It's great.
I'm aggressive today.
It's all right. Yeah. Wait, but go back to your shirt because your shirt looks like a flower. That's what you were saying.
Yes, I am styled today by First Miracle. I call it styled because I walked into her shop. I hadn't ever had a chance to go in there yet. As I'm usually home in pajamas with my kids doing everything remotely, naturally. Right. And she made me feel so special. She was like, oh my gosh. And it was fun and bright colors. And it was just this, yet again, an experience.
Right.
She made me feel like I was a princess. And like, she's just so down to earth and is passionate about making women and men, actually. They have an entire section of men's clothing. By the way, if you haven't been in there.
Listen,
you like a lot of plaid shirts.
Listen, I do. Do they have plaid shirts?
They do.
I have such a hard time with fashion because I don't like overtly trying to make myself look good. That's why I look like this, right? This is me doing the bare, like I brush my teeth and I shave and that's it. And it's
Okay,
like,
you're probably one of the typical guys. You probably use a towel you have one towel and you probably wipe the car down and yourself with it and your face. And it's like, oh, you look like that.
I don't have poor hygiene.
No,
I just don't shop.
I didn't say poor hygiene.
You just said I wipe my car down and then dry.
So that's our joke in our house. I tease my husband. I was like, you have perfect skin and you use the same towel for your face, for everything else. And you probably use the same towel for the car. How do you look like that? And I use a hand towel that I specifically wash a certain way.
Listen.
Like, it's not fair.
Have you ever seen pictures of people in the Amazon?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it's Nat Geo.
Do they have horrible skin?
Of course not.
Right. And they're caked in mud and dirt. You know the last time they washed their skin with like a Dove bar? Try never.
Never.
The point is, like, we beat the shit out of our skin. I don't even wash my hair. Like, I don't wash my face. I don't do anything to my skin.
I'm on team no poo, so I get it. Like, I don't wash
You're
my hair
on
either.
team no poo?
I'm team no poo is what they call it. So I don't use shampoo. I haven't
There
used.
You go.
No.
And look at your beautiful
Yeah.
hair.
Well, thank you. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't believe in overdoing what nature made.
But here's the thing. Like, I don't feel like you're overdoing it by shopping local, right? By picking out a shirt at a shop like that.
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I personally have a hang up with it. I had a hang up with it because I'm such a minimalist and like don't do whatever. But I actually do really like my plaid shirts. And my wife has started buying them for me. I don't know where she gets them. I think she gets them at like Costco or something. So if they have cool plaid shirts, I'm all in.
I teased her when I went in. So when she's getting all my stuff.
Do they have cool socks? I really like cool socks.
That's a really good question.
Because, like, I think we need to have some kind of, like, Stance kind of cornered the market with cool socks. I actually had Bob Ross socks, like Happy Little Clouds. Yeah.
How cute.
Yeah, they were great. Like, I love socks. I had Yoda socks, Star Wars.
Okay.
You know, like.
Socks are your jam.
Yeah. Like, if you have an awesome Argyle, I'm going to lose my mind. Like, I don't know what she has in her store, but she needs to get awesome socks.
It is. Okay. So I know for sure she has these oh my gosh, these men's shirts, when you roll the cuff up, they have like a different pattern on the cuff. And then she has an array of different style of like plaid shirts. And then she obviously, for the men that drink, she has like different types of beverage glasses.
So she's, again, did you see Schitt's Creek?
Oh,
right.
Like, I watched every episode.
There
and the
you
last
go.
episode made me cry hysterically.
Yeah, that was a sad episode.
It was
great though.
But it wasn't like sad. It was like
you were happy that you had
grew
the
as a person and you're not a terrible person anymore.
Okay, two things about Schitt's Creek. First, the general store that he opens, same kind of thing. Like,
yes.
The emphasis, what you keep talking about when you're going to these stores is like the experience you have. And I agree. There's a sterility to a lot of the consumer experience in the state we both moved from. There's something about it. You come here where you do have thriving multi-generation mom and pop shops, and they're like, oh, they've made it because they give their consumer this connection to the community, which is incredible.
Well, and being able to obtain unique hand-selected items, things that are very intricate and personal, and you kind of get this mass production in other places, but these little shops that we have in our community, oh my gosh, it is absolutely experience-based. Right. It is making sure that you feel like, as a consumer, that your dollar is going local, that you feel like you've walked out with not only an item, but memories attached to that item. And it's like a full circle.
That is funny because I remember exactly what Hope Bloom's flowers looked like on the inside. That's funny that you mentioned that because it is true. It's not this sterile transactional thing. It's literally like you almost had like an experience going.
But that's like everybody, like Hope Bloom's,
Yeah.
First Miracle, Holland Bites and Brews.
Yeah.
And then I got a shout out. Okay, I love your shirt, by the way. Pay-wise looks nice on you.
I try.
I
do
mean,
what I can.
You really do. Those gains.
Oh my God. Sun's out, guns out. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. And they're a payroll company, right?
They are. They're local, about 23 to 25 years in the Treasure Valley.
That's fantastic.
23 years in the Treasure Valley.
There you go.
A+ rated. And they're offering your viewership 20% off their payroll services.
Look at that.
I know.
Fantastic.
So if you go to them and you say, hey, I watched The Ranch and I heard about you guys there, they'll give you 20% off of your payroll services. And they only serve Idaho. So they are Treasure Valley
awesome.
based, only serve Idaho. And oh my gosh. Okay, so their name is kind of funny. Pezwez is kind of why it's like, it always makes me giggle a little bit. It actually stands for Professional Employee Services, Western Idaho Employee Service. And so they're kind of funny about it. And they always say, we don't care what you call us, just call us with your payroll service. Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah, they're
God
awesome.
bless it.
They're amazing. I mean, they're so invested in our community as well. Kenny, who is their like marketing guru, he works with Crime Stoppers on their board. He works with the chamber on
awesome.
their board. He's a veteran. He does a bunch of stuff with Kiwanis Club of Eagle, which, by the way, shout out to Kiwanis. I'm a Kiwanis member. And it just like to see all of these businesses so invested in our community and wanting to make sure our community flourishes is nothing like you'll get anywhere else.
Yeah. Okay. Second thing about Schitt's Creek, watching that show, I watched it at just the right time because there was this huge. Again, I was still living in California at the time.
Ew, David.
You folded in. I don't know how to do that.
What does it mean? What do you mean by fold?
Well, it's very obvious. Like, it's fantastic, right?
Moira.
But what I appreciated about that is it sneakily rallied against the sentiment that there's this unfair opposite of meritocracy. That there's this unfair playing field set up that like people with money have always had money. And I was mulling this over at a fire pit right when we had finished the series. And here's the thing, like you see, it starts out with these people that have made it, right? And it's so easy to be like, you idiots. Like, you made money, you were idiots, you lost all your money. Right? And they take like that giant portrait. They just like trying to move it in those. And you were like playing with this money and you like bought this town and you're a terrible person.
Like as a joke. They bought the town as a joke.
As a joke. But what you see as you watch that series is the dad falls back onto like, first off, they don't get divorced, which I always thought was amazing because here they've lost everything. And I think especially in hardship and mental and emotional trauma, people split up. It's like, this is too hard. And like they really hung in there. There's one episode when the mom is like hiding in the closet and she's like hasn't come out of the closet in 3 days.
Oh my gosh.
And it's this humorous thing, but the dad is like, your mother's in a rough time right now. Right? And his life sucks. Like he's falling apart. But he goes to work. He like rents the desk from the mechanic around the corner. And then just goes with a notepad and you don't know what he's doing. You're like, what are you doing? And he's just sitting there like trying to work things out. Like he went back. He didn't start drinking. They didn't just give up. He's like, there's an answer here somewhere. Right? So he starts going to work. And then he slowly starts adding value to the surrounding community, specifically to, his family and then the motel. So it's like he figured out something he could do, as humble as it was, because he was a chambermaid in the motel for a little while, but he started going after this thing. So he has that. Then his kids, who are useless, like useless as can be, also start just looking at the world and saying, I don't like the way this world looks. Right? Like the whole point with David and starting the general store is that he disagreed with the way that the store was being run. Like that he's like, you can make money. And his friend who becomes his husband is like, well, then do it better. And he's like, well, maybe I will. He's like, then do it. He's like, fine. And so he does it. He brings something. He brings an experience. He brings whatever it was that wasn't there before successfully.
He provided this view of local.
Right.
And he brought all of these amazing things that their community.
He drew locally, right?
But he also made it an elevated experience. So the people of the town that weren't used to shopping that way, like they would have shopped in LA or Paris or New York, they got this fun experience in their home with local products that they wouldn't have necessarily been able to get in touch with.
Right.
It's amazing watching the character development and seeing that tough time didn't break them, it made them.
Right. And you see through this, it's like, okay, they crawled back to the top, and each of the steps crawling back to the top is small, it's deliberate, and it's understandable. You're like, okay, I can see how this person did this, or I can see how, and then they make it back to the top. And I just so appreciated that, especially at the time with all this, I finished it in 2021. So it was after George Floyd, and there was all this negative sentiment with like race disparities and success. And I was just like, God, man, I don't know if people realize what they just watched because they watched the antithesis to that. Like the sentiment is you can take everything away from this family and they somehow figured out a way back to the top. And it was humble and it was painful.
And it's inspiring.
Yeah. It was like, they did it.
Yes.
They did it. Like, stop with this nonsense. I so appreciated Schitt's Creek.
Alexis getting a high school diploma. We were at your graduation, Alexis. There's pictures. That's an Asian girl. Who was this picture with? And they didn't even realize that she was like out of the country. And she comes up with all these stories of how she was like in a drug lord's vehicle in the trunk and all these things. And she's like, it was just a week. And like all these stories. But then you see her mature and take these life experiences and not end up a spoiled brat. She takes them and goes, you know what? I want to go on my own. Right. And I feel like that's so admirable. And in the world we live in, you know, it's very easy to see this world and go, this is going to be too hard to overcome. Like, I don't even want to try. And to feel empowered and to see other people do it is just nothing but like encouraging for the rest of us going through these tough times that it's not over. It's not over until you say it's over. Right. And you can keep fighting tooth and nail and somehow you're going to figure it out. It's going to take time and resources, and you got to figure out how to get those resources. But you can do this. Yeah, but again, when you see the dad sitting down with this like notepad, like the resource is his will and capacity to think through things and find problems. Like all he did was found problems and fix the problems. And he kept fixing problems. And he would run into more problems and he'd keep fixing until he had solved a large problem. And then other people were like, you have something now that's actually valuable because you figured out a way to solve a problem in a repeatable manner that yields revenue. Like, we'll invest in that. And not just that, like seeing it and wanting to invest in it, but seeing it and going, I've watched you work your way from the ground up. I want to work with you. Right. And the person who actually ultimately invested in me, she's like, this is not for this investment team, but like we're starting a portfolio. I remember your, you know, Rose movies, right? Or Rose videos. Yeah. And then they make like the Rosebud Motel. Yeah, exactly. And then she's like the popcorn. And he was like, yeah, personal touch. And he had that campy training video. Oh my gosh. Like, those are so great. That series, God bless it, man. What a great one. It was so good. Yeah. I love when they go for city council and Moira is like, wants to do it and he thought he was going to do it. But here's the thing. He loved her enough to see that she needed something. Right. And he gave that to her and was like, no, you need this. Right. And I want to see you happy and flourish because if you're happy, it's going to make me happy. Right. And like finding home whenever, I mean, they were picked up and moved out in like a day. Right. They had nothing. Right. That was the first episode, right? Except for that time David bought the skincare and he's like, how did you buy that? And he's like, on the credit card. And he goes, what money are you paying with it? He goes, it's on the credit card. What do you mean money? Yeah. They did such a great job of portraying ridiculousness. Yep. That's another, again, I can't remember that. Who's the actor, the dad? I can't remember his name. Levy. Eugene Levy. Yeah. He was in, I don't think he was in Waiting for Guffman, but he was in Best of Show. Okay. Which incredible movie. Parker Posey's in that movie as well. But it was like this dog show. He was in American Pie. Like he's an incredible comedian. And just again, a character. Like he kind of invented this character, like a Hugh Grant style. Like he invented this character that he's very good at playing, this kind of like awkward, goofy, you know, just happened into this room kind of person. Yeah. Well, and the fact that his love of, you know, portraying these characters went, because that's his son. Right. And it's really funny because Twyla is actually his daughter. Twyla is his real daughter. So the mom is the only one that wasn't an actual family member. Correct. So Alexis isn't his daughter. But gotcha. Twyla, who ran the little cafe, that's his actual daughter. Oh, that girl. The one who's rich but loved. That's the other thing. You find out after the fact that she had like won the lottery or something, right? Yeah. She had won the lottery. She was rich. She just liked engagement with the community. Yeah. Like that gave her meaning and somewhere to be. Oh, God, yeah. Man, that was such a cool Makes me wonder, cool like, series. Who do we walk around in this town? Which one of you has actually won the lottery? You know what's interesting? I train at Alliance Jiu-Jitsu. Okay, and, yeah. Great place. They're members. Great place. Yep. Oh, they're fantastic. Love them. Yeah, shout out. I was there this morning. Like, God bless it. That's why I have a fat lip. Anyway, the point is, I trained there and I found out, like, very randomly, and jiu-jitsu is the great equalizer because everybody puts on a gi and you put on a belt and you just go out. So, like, you don't know how people are dressed. But I have found out that there were, like,
at least 4 or 5 decamillionaires that I train with on a regular basis. They're worth, anywhere from 10 to like 50 million or more.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just here. They're just happy to be learning jujitsu. The rich people are just people.
They're going to Marie Antoinette me. Don't even start that.
The rich people are just people.
Oh my gosh. I have a follow-up from the Kellogg conversation. Okay. Remember we talked about you jokingly were like, what's cereal made of? And I was like, glyphosate. And then I brought up how the whole Kellogg CEO was like, well, let them eat cereal for dinner. There is at least 3-month boycott right now going on of Kellogg's. Everybody has immediately boycotted. They said, you know what? If you want to talk about eating cereal, we're not going to eat your cereal anymore. We're boycotting your entire portfolio. So anything Kellogg's based is right now being boycotted for a solid 3 months. There's even been stores where people are taking video. Their cereal's down to 99 cents, trying to get people to buy it.
Okay. I don't like cancel culture. But I also don't like to be taken by like corporations. Yep. What do you think about that? Because this is totally like, I don't like I don't like the sound you made with your face. And therefore, I'm going to like crush your business. But by the same time, like I also am so happy that Anheuser-Busch just took it when they came out with that ridiculous March Madness. It was a year ago. Like, oh my God, Dylan Mulvaney. Oh my God.
So that's what they called it. They called it, they Budweisered them.
That's now a thing.
It's a thing now.
You got Buzzwisered?
Yeah. So it's becoming a thing because we're realizing the profit margin of all of these corporations, and we're realizing where our dollar is going to be most valuable, which at the end of the day, go figure, is local. So there's people going, hey, how do we either buy these things from local mom and pop run organizations, or how do we make it ourselves? Because this price gouging, this putting us into the poorhouse to buy a box of Kellogg's Frosted Wheaties.
Or like, promoting something that is detrimental to my health. Like what nutritionist ever in the world was like, eat cereal for dinner?
Exactly. So it's just, I don't oppose it. I think at this point in time in our lives and the world we live in, our dollar has to speak. And I'm going to choose, to spend my money. Exactly.
We're going to vote. Do you think that there's a degree of unionization that we've been able to achieve as consumers by sharing information and having just enough options? Like last year when, Target came out with their ridiculous lines. I'm not even going to go into it. So I told my wife about like tuck-friendly swimsuits and she didn't believe me. And I Googled it and she was like, oh my God, right? I think there is, as a consumer, we're hyper individual. Right. And that's, in fact, in a lot of ways, the only last individuality we have, which is like where we spend our money.
Right.
And being able to share information and experiences about providers of services or products on a national scale has allowed consumers to have a better grasp of, okay, it's not just me. Like this person's being taken advantage of too. They're finding alternatives, or this is not okay. And so it's like this mass unionization that's a willful participation. Like, we're not obligated to do this, but people sharing information, being like, that doesn't represent my values. There are other people that are boycotting it. If you want to boycott it with us, come on in.
And that's totally what it is. I think it's brilliant. I also think that's why we see a lot of censorship on the internet. We see a lot of opinions being censored because I always think of Bug's Life. I think of when they talk about.
Why do you think of Bug's Life?
Okay, so I think of Bug's Life when the ants outnumber the grasshoppers. Right?
Thanks, Holland's Bites and Brews.
Yes. So the grasshoppers say, well, we can't let him rise up to us because there are more of them than us. And if they rise up,
if they ever realize that they outnumber us,
they will overpower us. And I think that's why so much of censorship happens, because we totally outnumber those that are, running these corporations and things. And at the end of the day, knowledge is power, like we talked before. And if we know that their cereal costs 10 cents to make and they're charging us $6, where's my $6 going? And I can't keep this up for very long because, every day the price goes up. Right. I mean, I go to Walmart or wherever to go get groceries periodically, and then the price is different every single time I go. Right. So it is insane. So I love it. I think it's the best thing we as a public can do, but it's also teaching people, where is your dollar going? Because I think it's so easy in our busy lifestyles to want so desperately for the ease of shopping and to just go one place and buy everything.
Right. Like that's the whole point of Target or Walmart, right? Like buy your groceries, buy everything, blah,
buy
blah,
your
blah,
body
blah.
products, buy your clothes. Yep.
Right. And at some point it's kind of like, look, I do think there's a value-oriented argument, but I also think that the consumer is now just saying, hey, your job is to sell me cheap shirts. Just stop telling me what I should accept or I should live and sell me some damn Fruit of the Loom.
Which, by the way, had a cornucopia. Don't even get me started on that Mandela effect. You heard that one, right?
No.
Okay, so back in the 90s, there was a cornucopia with all the fruit on top. Right, yeah. Right. But they're swearing that never existed.
Is this a thing?
It's a thing. Like, okay, Monopoly Man, did he have a monocle or no monocle?
Well, I know the peanut guy had a monocle.
Yes. Monopoly
guy, oh no, I'm going to get it wrong now. Now I'm envisioning the Monopoly guy with a monocle.
Okay, so it's like I went down this very deep loophole and like rabbit hole for I don't want to say how many hours I was researching. There is a gal that actually found an old school Monopoly set that on the $2 bill or whatever dollar bill it was, had them with the monocle, even though they claim he never had a monocle. Just like Fruit of the Loom claimed there was never a cornucopia.
Is this a thing? I'm looking this up right now.
Mandela effects. When you you can't sleep one night, you're going to go, okay, Brandy, sorry, Mandela effects.
Fruit of the Loom cornucopia. I'm putting this on air. Here we go. Images. It really looks like a cornucopia.
That's what I always had on my t-shirts. And I remember as a kid wearing Fruit of the Loom, like I don't like to call them wife beaters, but those like white tank tops.
Yeah.
Because you would get like a 6-pack and, we would wear them underneath our dance attire or whatever. You used it to make a special shirt in high school. We didn't have custom shirts as easily available back then.
Yeah. Man,
you did your own thing.
I don't have time for crazy corporations. Whatever, Fruit of the Loom.
So anyways, I think there is totally value to us not unionizing necessarily, but banding together and deciding that our dollar is worth more to spend to people like our local proprietors, our local dairies and farms and fruit stands, because at the end of the day, we're not paying necessarily for them to get rich and to go on a yacht and to go to the Maldives in the summertime. We're paying for their kid to go to soccer. Right. And we're paying for them to have good food on their table and pay for the roof over their head.
It's centralized. It's centralized economic concentration.
Yes.
Right. Like that's the thing. You don't like when you give money to Target, you're marginally funding the surrounding community that shows up to stock the shelves, and you're largely funding people that don't live here.
Yeah.
The reverse is actually happening with everybody that brings remote jobs to this area, because they're literally bringing a job that's an economic hub that's concentrating resources into that household that then spends it locally, which I think is pretty cool. But like you're funding other things.
Yep.
Instead of funding Hope Bloom
Stars. Oh, absolutely.
Listen, we've been going for a while here. Why don't we do this? Last shout outs on your page. Do we have anything? I mean,
let's see.
God bless it all so far.
Oh my gosh. The amount of people that poured into this first episode of this show was amazing.
It's fantastic.
So not only thank you to you, but thank you to everybody that's willing to watch this.
Yeah.
And give a platform for these wonderful businesses. And shout out to your viewership, because they're making all of this possible. So thank you for Smiracle for making me feel like a princess and giving me this beautiful outfit. We'll be posting pictures on the Eagle Chamber site.
Yes.
Thanks Hope Blooms for these amazing flowers. Holland Bites and Brews.
All day.
Yes. And Paywise. Thank you for Paywise for doing what you do, pouring into our community, giving an opportunity for ranch followers to have a discount.
Right. And again, I mean, that's somebody who just exists within Idaho.
And
so it's awesome.
Follow our social media on Eagle Chamber. We're going to start doing some polls every week. So when you and I chat, we have some really fun feedback from our community.
Awesome.
So stay tuned.
It'll be great. Stay tuned. We'll see you next week.
Sounds good. See you next week.
Great. MTU Studios is the proud producer for the Ada County Sheriff Podcast, the Idaho Wildlife Federation Podcast, the State Representative Ted Hill Podcast, the Idaho State PTA Podcast, and many more. If you or your organization is thinking about starting a podcast, MTU Studios would love to help. Just check out mtustudios.com.